Hanoi sets to fulfill growth target despite impact of COVID-19. And in our crosstalk, blockchain application on the rise in Vietnam. Hello there, welcome to another edition of BizLine on VTV International. I'm Hoàng Hằng, and as usual, we will begin with some economic highlights over the past week. At a conference to assess the impact of the COVID-19 epidemic on the socio-economic development of Hanoi, Chairman of Hanoi People's Committee Nguyễn Đức Chung affirmed that the city will fulfill its growth target of 7.5% despite the difficulties. As the COVID-19 epidemic puts pressure on the socio-economic development of the city, the chairman has requested related branches and agencies to tackle the bottlenecks of enterprises in which administration reform should be the priority. In addition, he also called for solutions to promote public investment to better attract foreign investment and create favorable conditions for enterprises, including providing financial support. Hanoi chairman also emphasized that correct evaluation of the epidemic will reveal solutions and opportunities. And with that, Hanoi is set to achieve the growth target of 7.5% amid the difficult situation of COVID-19. IFC, a member of the World Bank Group, has increased trade finance limits for Vietnamese banks as a rapid response initiative to address in advance possible trade finance challenges triggered by the outbreak of COVID-19. The four client commercial banks getting support are An Bình Bank, Tiền Phong Bank, Vietnam International Bank, and Vietnam Prosperity Bank. The increased total limit of $294 million will enable these banks to improve their capacity to cover payment risks in granting trade financing to local companies, mostly small and medium-sized enterprises. IFC is also exploring other expanded interventions to extend its support to Vietnam to mitigate the economic impact of COVID-19 and help the nation sustain robust economic growth. Quảng Ninh will resume import, export, and the transport of goods through 3 sub-border gates in the 2 localities after a suspension due to the outbreak of COVID-19. Resumption of trade at the Pontoon Bridge, kilometer number 3+4 in Hai Yên Wood, Mong Cái City, Quảng Ninh Province, must be made with full prevention measures instructed by the Ministry of Health. On Tuesday, 5 tons of lobster has been cleared and export of agricultural products will be normalized from Wednesday. Since going into operation in March 2018, the average daily export through this Pontoon Bridge reached over 200 tons of fruit and 200 tons of seafood products. As the COVID-19 epidemic continues to escalate, more pressure has been put on many economic sectors in Vietnam. However, this can also be a suitable time for some areas in the process of digitizing business activities such as supermarket chains to promote investment in online distribution and digital transformation, thus improving their competitiveness. Some other supermarket chains have recorded a sharp increase in online transactions, such as Aeon, with 3 times more than before the epidemic, and Co-op Mart even more. Promoting investment not only means expanding the scale, but also covering and improving in areas of weakness, one of which is delivery time. In 2018, supermarket chains in Vietnam invested at least $50 million in online distribution channels via websites or mobile apps. According to reports from the Foreign Investment Agency under the Ministry of Planning and Investment, as of February the 20th, the total value of newly registered adjusted capital contributed and share purchased by foreign investors or FDI in 2020 were nearly $6.47 billion. The total newly registered capital reached $5 billion, more than twice compared to the same period last year, thanks to the Bạc Liêu liquefied natural gas plant project granted its new investment certificate, with a total value of 4 billion US dollars. By sectors, electricity production and distribution led with a total capital of 3.89 billion US dollars, or 60.2% of total registered investment capital. Manufacturing and processing industry ranked second, followed by retail and wholesale. Among 73 countries and territories investing in Vietnam, Singapore led with a total investment of 4.12 billion US dollars. Vietnam has so far granted licenses to 460 U.S. producers of meat and meat products and 210 exporters of aquatic products. This is according to the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. Meanwhile, Vietnam is assessing quarantine and biosafety risks regarding grapefruit, nectarines, apricots and plums from the U.S. are scheduled from March the 2nd to the 13th. The U.S. Department of Agriculture will send a delegation to Vietnam to conduct a periodic review on the safety control program for seafood exported to the U.S. Those are some highlights in Vietnam's economic scene over the past week. Up next in our crosstalk, let's take a look at the potentials in blockchain application in Vietnam. Blockchain technology is an increasingly widely applied technology in the world in general and in Vietnam in particular. In Vietnam, this technology has been applied in many different fields such as finance, banking, agriculture, and e-commerce. Vietnam is also expected to become a leader in blockchain technology in Southeast Asia. So how can blockchain technology be applied in Vietnam? What are the new applications of this technology? Our BizLine this week tries to find out. First, let's take a look at the applicability of blockchain in the following clip.
The World Economic Forum forecasts that 10% of the global GDP will be stored on blockchain by 2025. This technology, which is said to be a technological backbone of the 21st century, has been applied in various sectors. It has involved the participation of around 800 startups around the world. According to Infinity Blockchain Labs, in Vietnam, blockchain is said to have great potential thanks to good quality human resources in the information and technology sector, a young population and a large amount of smartphone users. It has become an attractive technology and has been applied in different sectors such as finance, banking, agriculture, and e-commerce. The government also aims to develop e-government, applying modern technologies including blockchain. Meanwhile, many Vietnamese blockchain startups have attracted capital from a number of foreign investors. With great potential, Forbes predicts that Vietnam can become the leader in Southeast Asia in the field of blockchain.
I had a chance to talk with Kim Bồ Ngô, blockchain and ICO advisor at Am Marketing Blockchain, to discuss the applications of blockchain technology in Vietnam. Let's take a look. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kim Bồ. First of all, Forbes said that Vietnam can become one of the leader in the field of blockchain in Southeast Asia. Do you think it's too optimistic?
I don't think that's too optimistic. It's actually a very fair assessment. Right now, blockchain is still a very new industry, new technology. Vietnam is poised to do very good in this field, mainly because one, we have a very young, hungry population. Everyone knows that. The second is we have a technical savvy population who are very eager to learn, which allows testing of unique blockchain models and incentives to be tested here in Vietnam. And of course, the test or the cost of operation is not so high. So we could test out different models to see if the incentivization model works out and how we can apply it into across multiple fields. Especially as Vietnam grows and connects to the international stage, we're actually quite open to change and adapt. So there's a lot of opportunity. I guess our challenge is we need to move up on the value chain instead of just purely coding. I know a lot of projects here. We have teams who do research as well as development for projects abroad in fintech, in vehicle management and data, in communications, in payments, a lot of different activities. But Vietnam really needs to continue pushing the frontier of both innovation and leadership for us to really be, to maintain that status or get to that status of leadership in Southeast Asia.
What sector do you think has the most effective application of blockchain so far in Vietnam?
There's a lot of different models that could be applied, actually. Blockchain is just the underlying technology. The key thing that we look at for is, does it really solve a certain pain point? So in areas of like tracking of goods or agriculture, etc., those are very useful because people are always worried about provenance, country of origin, tracking of the products, etc., both internally inside of Vietnam and externally abroad. Second is anything that requires heavy amount of documentation, integrity of documentations and paperwork, trade finance. This is highly applicable right away. My personal opinion, I think if Vietnam applies it on a national ID level, have access to people, you can use that to connect to all sorts of industries, from vehicle management, from healthcare to driving, through all sorts of areas.
Do you think we can expand this application to other sectors, and which do you think has the most potential?
It could be expanded to all sorts of areas, right? Like including, let's say, man hours or consulting. In Vietnam, I think the key here is we're still connecting and growing in the international stage. We're trying to show that Vietnamese products are good, high quality, people can track it. So in terms of supply chain, I think that's number one, the best. Second is probably in terms of like national identity and using that to facilitate interaction with public services are two very high potential and high impact areas and fields.
In July 2019, HSBC successfully carried out the first live blockchain letter of credit between a Vietnamese plastic company and its Korean ceramic supplier. Conventional exchanges of paper-based documentation related to letters of credit usually take between 5 and 10 days. However, with blockchain, the exchange was done in just 24 hours. The need for paper reconciliation was removed because all parties were linked on only one platform and updates were instantaneous.
Thì mọi cái giao dịch mà mọi cái chỉnh sửa từng dòng từng chữ đều có lưu vết lại hết để mình kiểm soát được cái quá trình mình thay đổi cái chứng thư.
The live blockchain transaction was the first of its kind in both Vietnam and Korea, and the seventh globally. The HSBC representative said that the success of the transaction demonstrates that blockchain as a solution to trade digitization is commercially and operationally viable for small and medium enterprises.
Now, what's particularly interesting here is that Doi Tan, the Vietnamese company, is not a multinational, and there's a preconception that multinationals are the first adopters of new technology, when this a much wider range of technology, which is going to help their efficiency, which is going to help their security, and which is also going to be more economical for them.
Experts forecast that finance and banking will be the sector that will see the widest application of blockchain in Vietnam in the next 5 years. This technology is expected to open more opportunities for Vietnamese enterprises to improve their international trade activity efficiency.
What is the significance of the first application of letter of credit or LC through blockchain for the development of blockchain application in Vietnam?
So recently, HSBC conducted a cross-border letter of credit between Vietnam and Korea. In this case, it's actually just how they agree on the terms of letter of credit. The standard process may take 5 to 10 days. Specifically for this one, I think this impact will help bring Vietnam on the stage a little bit more, make it more acceptable. And in terms of what they're doing, it will help Vietnamese exporters save money on the whole process, but also can increase their cash flow. You know, instead of waiting 5 to 10 days for the agreement to be done, plus, you know, making sure that they adhere to the agreement, this could be done much more quickly and faster. So cash flow will go fast. So our farmers or whoever exporting don't get stuck with delayed payments by an extra week or so. Time is money. So that is the big economic reward here, right? Something that takes 5 to 10 days definitely impacts cash flow, people management, resource allocation, and even confidence in doing business abroad. Letters of credits are very traditional products that are required for exports because that helps exporters feel comfortable and make sure that they can get their money, right? With this increasing confidence, those who are exporting, can just basically do business a lot easier and faster, especially if someone as big as HSBC or other big banks or institutions participate and support. It just makes it much more efficient and allows the rest of the people to focus on other value-add activities.
The transaction in Vietnam is the 7th transaction of letter of credit via blockchain that HSBC has carried out worldwide. Since its first transaction last year, the total transaction via this blockchain trade finance platform is still modest. So what can be done to popularize this type of blockchain application in the future?
So one of the challenges in a blockchain project like this is you need to have mass adoption, right? And you need different parties to participate. So HSBC has done a pretty good job internationally, bringing various different partners into the ecosystem. HSBC in this case actually just did it with their own counterparty, HSBC Korea versus HSBC Vietnam. So it's actually quite easy because it's still kind of internal, if you will. To popularize it, they need to find a way to bring other players in that field to utilize that platform. This platform is called Voltron. Blockchain only grows through the adoption of an ecosystem and a community participating. So I think proof of concept is there. They've done real live transactions. It's now about, all right, does it make sense to others? Will they want to compete?
So what are the biggest challenges for blockchain application in letter of credit transactions?
So letter of credit transaction is basically a way to guarantee and to protect the interests of those who are exporting, importing, right? The money flow, et cetera. The challenges still are the manual processes of getting data into it and data out. So that one, because HSBC and other large institutes have strong processes, that's okay. But other things that you have to think about are, let's say, the legal rights of the digital asset. In Vietnam, we still don't have those certificates and stamps because that's how we confirm or verify these are valid documents certified by the government, et cetera. Digital assets doesn't have that process yet, but blockchain can help create that. Right? The integrity of that data or the integrity of that document. The second question is, will the government or national bodies accept that when there's any conflict? Will they use that document to go to court and say, hey, this is the letter of credit, this is the guys and adhere to it? In reality, I think what they do is they use the blockchain to confirm the details, it's all live, but then after that, they still have to go through the traditional paperwork route and then get that all certified within the current regulations. But I'd like to see that in the future being all digitalized. Then it'll make things go very smooth, very quick.
This company exports Vietnamese pepper, ginger, and spices to many countries using traditional methods. According to a representative, the export of agro products faces a lot of problems, such as high costs due to over-reliance on the US dollars, middlemen, paper-based processes, and low access to funding in emerging markets.
Nó có khá nhiều cái tồn đọng. Thứ nhất là cái tốc độ thanh toán của phía đối tác cho những người xuất khẩu như chúng tôi. Thường là ở phía ngân hàng, chúng tôi thực hiện một giao dịch mất khoảng 3 ngày. Thì chúng tôi muốn tăng được cái tốc độ giao dịch đấy. Cái thứ hai là muốn tìm kiếm thêm những cái cơ hội bán hàng của Việt Nam mình ra nước ngoài nhưng với danh nghĩa là thương hiệu.
Those issues will no longer exist thanks to decentralized commodity trading by Binkabi, the first of its kind in Vietnam. The platform is powered by blockchain and uses tokens. Each token digitally represents a unit of a commodity of maize or rice, for example, which are then turned into assets and traded, forming a token ecosystem.
It acts as a discount and membership token, and that by you being able to access to the emerging market, commodity market, then you need Binkabi token, and then when you're having trade, you need Binkabi token in order to receive discount, and these discounts are perpetual, that you can use it again and again and again.
Blockchain technology is also transparent, which means parties cannot fake the information stored on the blockchain, thus solving the problem of trust. The trading platform matches trades moving in opposite directions, allowing bilateral trades to be settled in local currencies, thus saving foreign exchange costs. Sellers and buyers are connected only through smart contract.
First is to look at certain trade corridors that we know extremely well, and these are between within Southeast Asia, within Africa, and between Southeast Asia or Vietnam with Africa.
The platform will help increase income for lychee growers by 7% to 10%. According to BKB, Vietnamese agro products that meet Vietgap standards can join the system to access bigger markets.
Now, besides domestic use of blockchain, Vietnamese startup also utilize this technology for their international transaction. One such example is BKB, which launched the first agro product trading platform using blockchain last year. What do you think Vietnamese firms use of blockchain to go global?
I think this is a very interesting use case. I looked into them, and they basically look like a trading platform that helps trade commodities and certify it for farmers and importers and exporters. I think this is very useful because that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to go direct to the providers of value and services and maybe cut out various middlemen. I think this is a great way of showcasing the innovation of Vietnam and in connecting us to the global world. I also hope that other Vietnamese startups or even large corporations take inspiration from this. This will ideally bring Vietnam onto the international stage at a higher level, and of course bring more business and increase the standard of living here in general.
Agriculture is a big sector in Vietnam that generate a lot of revenue. So are there some examples of blockchain application in agriculture that you can give so we have an understanding of this type of technology?
Anything that requires data integrity, that's the key thing here, right? So in this case, agricultural trading, he has it is basically, you're still using traditional points of contacts to confirm things, right? The product goes to a warehouse, licensed warehouse, they certify, I got X amount of rice, for example, of what quality, etc. Then they issue a token, all right, that represents that. In the traditional world, you might see that as like commodity trading, etc. Other things they can use is, let's say, for representation of orchid of apples or durian or whatever, right? And then use that to capture the information on how they take care of that product. So for example, how often do they water it? When do they do the inspections, the health of the plant and the tree, et cetera, so that when people want to understand or see the history of that product, they feel comfortable with it. Most people use it at that basic level. Data integrity is the only thing that people worry about, right? And again, the challenge, like I mentioned before, is how does that input go into the system? That's why those who do it, they tend to do it with established practices around, let's say, fair trade, organic. I think that's probably the most useful at the moment.
Do you think we can utilize blockchain technology to promote Vietnam's agro exports in the future?
Yes, of course, yeah. Because right now, a little while back, I think the Chinese government required changes to the certificate of origins for Vietnamese agro products to China. Technically, that doesn't require blockchain, but if blockchain is applied, it'll help create more confidence for national governments to accept that information, make sure the integrity is there, and speed up the processes for import and export.
Leaders of several countries underscore the important role of blockchain technology in their national development. In addition to the private sector, they look at expanding the application of this technology in public services and to build their e-government. In China, President Xi Jinping demanded the exploration of using the data sharing model of blockchain to realize the trans-department and trans-regional maintenance and utilization of government services data. Meanwhile, Thailand's key finance agencies, including the Revenue Department and the Customs Department, launched a project using blockchain technology last year. The technology will be used for information associated with value-added tax and inspecting value-added tax refunds. Many other countries such as Estonia, Sweden, the UK and the US have piloted or implemented projects to apply blockchain in fields such as government document management, EID management, land registration, birth registration, and healthcare history management.
Some country has been applying or built plan to apply blockchain in the public service sector. Do you see this become a reality in Vietnam soon?
Yes, of course. Governments who take the lead on this can have a great way of helping make more efficient their public services. I know that I think it was the Ministry of Science and Tech last year held a conference for Technology 4.0. We talk about it a lot. If they can really institute that and find a way to bring it into the various ecosystems of the different government bodies, the processes, this can make things super fast, super streamlined. You know, every time you go, let's say even to the police or to healthcare or to get your driver's license, etc., you don't have to fill in all your information. You know, your ID card and the certified information can be utilized to link up the data, and it can make processes extremely efficient.
Now, what legal framework should be built to assist both Vietnamese enterprises and the government to effectively use blockchain technology?
Legal frameworks, I think the key for Vietnam is to try to create a regional dialogue or even a global dialogue with other players who are looking at international cross-border activities, right? How do we accept digital documents? Is it useful? Is it not? How do we manage it? How do we deal with trade disputes, conflicts, etc. You know, I used to do exports to and from Vietnam before, and I remember the very process super long. That process is there to make sure that documents we do are legal, correct, etc. If Vietnam joins into the different legal frameworks that are being discussed around the region, they can increase trade facilitation very fast. So, you know, Singapore and Hong Kong was looking at for, I think it was equity settlements cross borders, right? So we're doing, let's say, you know, buying and selling equities in Vietnam. If this could be applied for settlement, that could be very useful for connecting external capital to trade onto Vietnam stock market, for example. Other frameworks would be around areas like maybe data privacy, data integrity, you know, GDPR, etc. These are just general frameworks that are required around data, right? Once we have that very clear, it makes it easy for everyone to understand what they can apply blockchain and cannot, right? And if there are rules and regulations on, let's say, capital controls, capital flight, payments, then it's a lot easier for lawyers, businessmen, everyone to feel comfortable to make sure that they are following the law accurately to ensure the prosperity of Vietnam.
Okay, well, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
With a young population, high rate of internet usage, large number of smartphone users and fast e-commerce development, Vietnam is considered a country with great potential in developing blockchain technology applications, as well as one of the emerging blockchain hubs in the region. We will keep a close watch of this emerging trend and update you in future episodes of BizLine. In the meantime, you can log on to our official website at vtv4.vtv.vn or our YouTube channel at VTV Go for more news and updates. Goodbye for now, and thanks for tuning in.